Hi, this is Tom. Welcome to my channel. I wanted to make a video on how to work with ChatGPT to create a complicated um, prompt. So the prompt is for ChatGPT, and I guess um, I'll start with the final result. So the final result is um, task instructions for ChatGPT. And this has to do with how to evaluate a list of influencers. So influencers could be artists or photographers, illustrators, and such, about how well their work aligns with the specified theme. The specified theme, the context here is Midjourney. Um, Midjourney has a daily theme channel, which changes from day to day, more or less. So the daily theme for today is luminogram. And so the idea is I wanted to have a set of instructions that would um, evaluate a list of artists, photographers, and so on. So the main point of this video is to show the process involved. So I'm not going to get too bogged down in the details because I just want to show the interaction, the sort of interaction that you would do with ChatGPT to get a complex prompt like that. So the first thing I'll mention is that instead of using the terminology a complex prompt, and for the scrolling here, I'm going to try to find the starting part because this is in the midst of a long session. So I went too far. Okay, here we are. Instead of using the phrase a complex prompt, I'm going to talk about a set of instructions. And I found that to be helpful for a couple of reasons. One is the word prompt can be a bit ambiguous because the prompt is also used for the Midjourney prompts. So that's one reason I prefer talking about a set of instructions for ChatGPT. Another reason I prefer that is that it's very comfortable to think of a set of instructions because that's something we've been doing all of our lives is dealing with sets of instructions. And so it's something we're very accustomed to using, creating, following. So that's the reason I like it. And it's also, I think, clear for ChatGPT to communicate with it. So there's not the ambiguity of prompts, what that's dealing with. Okay, so the task is I wanted to come up with a way that it would evaluate a list of photographers. In this particular case, the influencers were photographers, and the daily theme was luminogram. So here, this is where I started the process. Said I'd like to work with you on building an algorithm for evaluating influencers to process a given task. First, I'd like to discuss the motivation for the task. Say I give you a list like this. So here's a list of photographers. And I ask you to consider the whole list and choose one for the given task. You don't do this very well. It appears to me you react based on your training data, and you favor certain ones based on that. You don't go through any sort of process to really evaluate them based on a specific task. Also, you tend to favor those at the beginning of the list, which is a common AI thing in general. So I started working on an algorithm to improve this. You're with me so far. Okay, so here my goal is to come up with the set of instructions that I showed at the beginning of this video, at the end of this process. And I didn't know exactly what that would look like, but I have a general idea of what I wanted to do. And so I'm starting by getting ChatGPT up to speed on what the task is. And this is a very effective way of working with ChatGPT because it was designed this way. It was designed to work hand in hand with the human being that's interacting with it. So a really good starting way to go about a complex task like this is just to get ChatGPT up to speed about what the task is, and then try to brainstorm with it about how to go about it. Okay, so I said, "You're with me so far?" And then it said yes. And I'm not going to go through its answer, but basically it understood, what we were trying to do. And then said, "I'm ready to assist you in discussing and formulating this algorithm." All right, so then I said, okay, so my idea was to go through the list and implement a point system. And then I go through some details about how I wanted to do that. And an important thing I wanted to point out was, let's see, that I think I mentioned somewhere that here, this is important, this part here, this paragraph. So I want you to go through and implement a point system. Okay, so where we are is we have a list of photographers, and I could give it a set of instructions such as carefully consider each photographer and see how that photographer works for the given task. And the given task is how well does that photographer align with the daily theme? And it doesn't really do that. It just kind of relies, this is my impression of what it does. It just relies on its training data. There's certain names it likes. It picks a name and likes names that are more towards the beginning or the end. But what I wanted it to do would be to go through every name and pick out the best one or the best set from the entire list. And when I asked it to do this, it would say like, well, I'm an AI. I don't have personal preferences. I don't make subjective, decisions. It balked at that. And so I said, well, you got to be able to do this objectively. I don't want a subjective opinion. I want an objective one. So come up with some set of criterion that you have for doing this task, and apply that. And so it wrote out a set of instructions to do that. So I already had that as a starting point, but I wanted to improve that. And so I explained that. I explained that like what it was balking at. I showed the instructions that it came up with to deal with that. And asked for its comments. All right, so then it commented, I feel a cough coming on. Excuse me. Maybe we'll see. Yes, here it comes. Sorry about that. Okay, so it responded, and then said, okay, let's develop this point system. And actually, I worked with I gave it the original list. Excuse me, I gave it the list that I had and the original set of instructions and asked it to try it out. So it did it. And in its response, you can see here it says, and so on for the rest of the list, which, I didn't want that. I wanted the entire list. And so I responded. I said, this wasn't a very good response because you didn't go through the entire list. And then I said, however, I think the process could be improved, so let's work on that. we've been doing things with JSON. I think that would work well here. Let's start by having you write out things insofar as how a given influencer might be adapted for a daily theme. This could be for a given style, not just photography. Think of a criteria that we could use as properties for a JSON structured for analysis in this task. Okay, so I'm not wanting you, the viewer of this video, to get bogged down on the specifics of this given task. You might not be familiar with JSON, the approach that I'm using. None of that matters. What I'm wanting to show in this video is the give and take of the process and how it develops. And I'd say that like most of the time, almost all of the time, when I'm starting this, I don't really know what the final result will be. So I have a general idea of what the goal I have in mind is. And I tell ChatGPT that, and I'm working interactively with it to try to get to some solution to the general task. So I thought using JSON would be a good way to go in this particular task. And it approved of that, and it started to run with it. So it listed out, ways of going about this. And I said, this looks good. I said, we need to have a total score somewhere because it gave a bunch of criteria. I said, do you think a 1 to 5 system would be good? And I said, we'll need a JSON schema for it because JSONs work well with schemas. And so it liked that approach. It came up with the schema. Here's the schema. And then on the description, I liked the schema it came up with, but one thing was it tailored it specifically to one particular thing, the daily theme. And so I just added in parentheses or other theme because I didn't want it to be limited to that. And the rest was good. And for the input, I was going to give it like JSON, and it has a schema, and these are details I don't want to get bogged down with. But it wrote out a set of instructions, task instructions for ChatGPT. Okay, and then it was expecting the schema. I asked if it wanted a schema. It said yes, that would be helpful. So I gave it to it, and then it wrote out the task again. And I said, I don't see the schema here. I meant to say schemas because there's 2 schemas involved. But again, these are details. But basically, we're interacting. I'm asking it for a set of instructions. I'm evaluating the set of instructions. I'm giving it feedback. It's reacting to that until I get something that I like. And so here it's responded. It rewrote that. And then so I liked what I had. And I said, here's the script of what I have so far. So I took what it gave me, put it all together, because like on here, this evaluation criteria schema, it didn't write out the whole thing, but I had the whole thing previous. So I put the whole thing together and gave it the entire script that I had up to date. And then I said, is this what you had in mind? And I thought it would just say yes. That's what I had in mind. But it actually said, yes, the script you have developed aligns well. It's kind of interesting, it says the script that I have developed when actually, it wrote the whole thing. I'm just guiding it. But it wrote this out, and it said, yes, the script you have developed aligns well, with the task that we have in mind. It says, here's a few considerations to enhance the script further. Okay, so I said, please rewrite the top part of the script before the schema to implement this. Because the script has 2 parts. It has the instructions and it has the schema at the bottom. And so it did that. And so here is the final result. This is what I showed you at the very beginning of the video, we got to an end result. And this is where I'm going to end this video, is here. But the next phase would be to test how well the script uh, works. And so this isn't the end product, but this is what I wanted to cover in this video, because I think that there can be a misconception that you can just give ChatGPT a task and it just does it. When in reality, there's an interactive, give and take, process. And actually, I started this in a previous session because I had an original set of instructions, and but I I hadn't gotten far with that. And I would say like this entire process from what I had previous to what I have here, the whole thing took less than an hour. So it doesn't take a lot of time to create a complex prompt, but it also isn't like just a one sentence saying give me this and it gives it to you. It's an interactive process, and say half an hour to an hour is a good time period to expect. And depending on what you're doing, I mean, the project that you have in mind might take many sessions, but just to improve it and make it more robust. But for this particular process, which is just an evaluation process, um, I'd expect the whole thing might, I don't know, I don't know how, depends how good I want to get it, how much I want to improve and so forth, but and how well it works and all of that. But just to get a good starting point, a nice set of complex instructions, a complex prompt, I'd say 30 to 60 minutes. That's a good time frame. And to go over the process again, like it doesn't matter like what the details are. You could apply the same process to any sort of idea that you have. And that is, you start with a general idea, explain the idea to ChatGPT, make sure it understands what it is you're trying to accomplish, and then you have this give and take process, kind of uh, as we went along here, where I'm evaluating what it's giving me, making suggestions to it on how to improve it, how to tweak it, and so forth. And then once it gives me its product, I cobble the things together, give it back to it, and see what its reaction is to that. And then we can go through and test the script. And the testing of the script is the same sort of thing, where you tell it what you don't like about it, and the same sort of thing. The main point I wanted to get at, there was 2 points. One is that it's an interactive process. That's how to really leverage ChatGPT, is to think of a joint process where you're working together to achieve a certain goal. And then the second thing was to give a time frame that's reasonable, because sometimes I see that people may think that you can just do something in like a couple of minutes, something like that, or just works immediately. And said, no, that's not what it's like. But it's also not. You can get nice results, and like I think the whole thing I did here, it took me not even half an hour. Okay, well, I hope you find that useful, and thanks for watching the channel.